I mean, just think about you're playing professional now. You have a pay cut. Now you don't know when you're going to play next. Now you're 28, and that's the only way you feed your family, and you don't know anything else because you didn't have college education.
Right.
Now you put in your life in a completely different perspective. You start thinking about, do I need to work on landscaping? Do I really need to go back into doing Grubhub or doing Uber?
Yeah.
And now you have professional athletes losing their heads because they don't really know what they're going to do because they weren't smart enough to know how to manage their money.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they didn't have the right mentors to tell them, hey, listen, this may happen. You may get injured. You should start investing now. You should definitely only put X money to the side. Management.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching how to manage their life and basically pray and have faith.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I say is pray for what you can have. Is be thankful for what you have.
Right.
And make to have patience.
Yeah, patience
because,
is huge.
Yeah, if you don't understand what patience means, it's a completely different factor.
Yeah.
So working with athletes, they are going 16, 17, their career just start, and next thing you know, they're about to get a tryout overseas, and now that's shut down. And now the team says, I don't want them anymore. Now they feel their life is ending because they're still going through an emotional regulation, just getting to know themselves.
Right.
And now they think maybe soccer is not for me. Maybe this is a signal. They don't see the reality from a different point of view.
Right.
So that's another factor. Why?
Right.
Because you have to kind of bring into reality. And, hey, listen, the world is not ending. It just give you a completely different point. It's time for you to work on your weaknesses and actually make this become a stronger point. When you have a different tryout, you're going to be in a better point than just not working on this.
Right.
So you basically give them a different outlet.
Yeah.
You basically put them in a different focus point where they're able to concentrate on something different than what the negativity is happening around them.
Right, you focus the energy in a different place instead of where what didn't happen they wanted to. You focus it into, okay, how can we use this to make ourselves better?
Correct.
Yeah.
So basically use that time for something positive.
Right.
Basically utilize that time and become a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
A lot more effort in what things you didn't want to put effort on. Time for rehabilitation, time for recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And really emphasize on being grateful, basically.
Yeah, that's something. I feel like that's something that makes it sound so simple to say. Take the negative energy or the energy and focus it into something positive instead of negative. But really, if you get the right mentor or the right person that helps you do that, that can change everything almost. Because you're just sitting there wallowing in, oh, I didn't get this tryout, and you're just reflecting on that one bad thing. But you need like a friend or a family member to say, hey, let's focus it somewhere else. And like it sounds so simple, like when we just say it out loud, but sometimes it's not that simple.
Correct. So I tell you, this is basically one of the things I tell my young athletes is like, the first time we grew up with my grandfather. My grandfather was born in 1902, so you can imagine the education he had, right?
Yeah.
So you basically go into the woods, and I was 8, 9 years old, and I killed my first animal.
Mm-hmm.
And you're taking a life away with your own hands. And now you have to clean the animal. You gotta eat it.
Right.
You respect food.
Yeah.
You respect life.
Yeah.
But here, everything is given to us. We throw food away.
Yeah.
We take things for granted.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really appreciate things that are given to us and respect that we deserve things without doing anything.
Right.
So knowing that means we feel that we're entitled to so many things, and when things really hit us hard, because we're not used to being
hardship.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's basically being raw and out. So I think the educational aspect as a parent, as a mentor, is a big thing. But emphasizing in the kids' mental health or the human mental health is a big point, just by knowing where they are.
Right.
Because not everyone is the same. You can't treat everyone the same way.
Right.
Some people will overcome things easier, some people won't. So you really have to really know who you're working with.
Makes sense. I'll ask a couple more questions, but we can get Rachel on later in a different episode to talk about the business side of things. But so you've taken all these experiences that you've had, and you had this passion for the anatomy of the human body and the psychology behind it, and then obviously you had the performance piece of you playing in the national team when you were young. And then how did you, when you came to America, how did you decide that you wanted to, or not how did you decide you wanted to start a business, but how did you go about doing that? Because in America, everybody's need licenses and certifications and business licenses and all sorts of things. So did you have to go back to school and get some licenses, or how did you end up going from the end of your soccer career into where you are now, where you have the gym and you're training people from that unique aspect of using the psychology?
So that was a different journey, man. At that point, I didn't know anything about psychology.
Uh-huh.
At that point, I was just getting to know myself, to be honest with you.
Right.
I just knew survival. I just knew how to survive, right?
Uh-huh.
So basically, my soccer career ended when I was very young. I was 18, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I couldn't go to high school because I was 18. So I had
Right.
to figure out GED, whatever. And I basically had to figure out how I was going to survive in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll explain next another episode of how that happened. But long story short, I went to Falls Church High School first to figure out how I was going to get my GED.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, you speak no English.
Right.
You have to actually first learn the language, then we'll figure out where we're going to put you.
Right.
And they say, well, you want to start at grade 9. I was living in Bellsville, Maryland.
That's far.
Yeah. So I didn't know how to use a metro or any of that stuff. So I went to PG County High School. And I had to do homeschooling.
Right.
But I also had to find a part-time job to work because my parents are not here. I lived in this country since I was 17 on my own.
Yeah.
So at that point, my manager helped me get a place with my uncle. And at that point, I moved out of my uncle's house. And then you realize you're like, crap, I have to go back to high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a job finally, sweeping a furniture store. I was cleaning bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing I looked around was a gym to see where a gym was.
Right.
And I didn't have a car.
Uh-huh.
So I would run 8 miles one direction, go shower, work out 5 in the morning, and go work after that because I didn't have a bike or a car.
Jeez. Yeah.
Every day, rain, shine, or snow, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't have a cell phone.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have a computer. There was no internet. I was doing mail homeschool system. So I would get this big package of books
sent to you
and sent to me, and I have to finish it after I take a 2-hour ride in the metro.
Yeah.
And go home and study and wake up early in the morning and do it over again.
That's amazing. The drive to do that every day, especially 8 miles. Like, if I get up and run like even like 3 or 4 miles, but double that every day. That's crazy.
In my run, I never felt it because in my run, when I got my job, so after 2 months doing that, I said, this is nonsense. I have to find a place where to move closer, right?
Right.
And then I moved to Fairfax to one of the guys I met playing soccer. So I was playing soccer on the weekends in one of the Spanish leagues that were paying me like $200 a game.
Uh-huh.
And I was paying for my education like that. So I was making like $800 a week and playing 4 games Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
So it was good money for me, plus I was working. And one of the guys was like, hey, do you want to move with us? We have an extra room. I said, sure. They never told me that was being evicted. They were being evicted, and they never had a bank account. They just got here.
Wow.
And they pulled my money under the mattress, and they took everything. So I lived in a shelter for a month and a half,
mm-hmm.
just to try to figure out where I was going to go next.
Right.
And at that point, they took all my homework, too. All my high school, because they evicted everything. They put everything in the corner.
Oh, that's crazy.
Right? So basically, you have to start over again.
Right.
But long story short is, I had to learn the language within 4 months.
Uh-huh.
If not, I wasn't going to be able to actually have a job because the place where I was working was right in Gallows Road in Lee Highway. Old furniture store was a consignment store, and everyone there was spoke English. So the guy was like, "Hey, listen, you have to give you a shot, but you have to learn the language."
Right.
And I used to go to college in the one in Gallows Road,
mm-hmm.
and I used to pass Prosperity. I used to pass all the way down by Germantown in Fairfax,
mm-hmm.
and I used to run from there all the way to there every morning. And then basically, I had to learn the language. I picked the biggest book I can find in English and I started reading without knowing what I was saying.
Yeah.
I picked this book called Letters to Iwo Jima, and that's since I started learning history. But basically, from there, it took me a year and a half to finish 3 years of high school. And I finished high school at 4.3 GPA.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so basically, I finished 3 years within a year and a half, and that basically opened the doors for me to
mm-hmm.
prepare myself mentally and also academically.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, I started taking college credits and basically going to a completely different route, which was basically performance anatomy, and I started getting certifications to personal training and really learning what the human body was in rehabilitation.
Yeah.
So I went from drawing upper doors from back in 2008.
Uh-huh.
I went to San Diego, basically took the kettlebell certification. In order
mm-hmm.
to get certified from them, you have to actually perform. So you actually, every certification I ever gotten was you have to perform in order to get certified. A lot of trainers basically they get certified online and they go teach people without even knowing
Yeah,
if they're doing the right
they just
one.
read a book, click a couple buttons, and they get the cert.
Correct. So, I mean, my first book I ever read was Power for the People by Pablo. I mean, just understanding and educating yourself is a huge point, you know.
Yeah.
I knew the anatomy, understand. I mean, I don't know how a car works, but I can tell you every tendon in your body because I had to be proud of something that I knew.
Yeah.
So you have to put your ego in your craft. And my ego was basically on how much knowledge I had about the human body mechanically.
Right.
Because that's the only thing I did growing up. So putting that into the psychological part was very simple because I kind of picture myself doing those things and understanding it was a completely different factor. But now, this past 2-3 years, I have emphasized a lot into the psychological point of view for athletes and overall for performance.
Okay, so you didn't get into that until a little bit later.
Yeah, I understood what it was until really understanding how to explain it. You understand it, but you don't know how to explain it.
Right.
But when you understand it, you learn how to explain it. So for one point, we worked with Dr. George Carlo. He was the performance coach for the Detroit Tigers and the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
And he is a huge believer in how the psychology and mind and body connection works. And
right.
He has done so much work with so many athletes in understanding what the epigenetic activation and you're going into a sympathetic nervous station, parasympathetic nervous station make a huge factor into where sports development is. So it was a completely different thing. You know, it changed completely how you view sports, how you view life, period. And just going from there, I mean, just really understanding. There's a lot of certification that doesn't really teach you many things, but really understanding books like, I mean, just the body keeps the score. It's a book that teaches you how trauma is healing your body, storing your body, and you're able to overcome it. I mean, there's things that is not just certifications. It's basically self-improvement.
Yeah.
So many things you can have a license, but if you don't know how to implement it, it doesn't mean that you really know what you're doing.
Right.
But really understanding the concept of what you're learning and what you're getting the license for, then yes, you will understand what you're doing with that license.
Yeah, you have to implement it and use it in your everyday practices.
And you gotta be your first client. You have to be your first guinea pig.
Yeah, because that's how you try it. You don't want to try it on somebody else and then it doesn't work and you make them worse.
Correct.
that wouldn't be too good.
And then, like you asked, how did I become from going into professional athlete to get into my regular lifestyle? I mean, I was at the gym. I go to the gym outside the gym every morning at 5 in the morning before they open. I was the first person there.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's like, you should start working here. I'm like, man, how?
Yeah.
That was 2005.
Mm-hmm.
End of 2004, beginning of 2005. He's like, well, get the certification. And I think it was ACE. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember how, when I got my certification and I went through it. And next thing you know, I'm training people. The next thing you know, everybody got to know me in the gym and I started competing in rugby. And I didn't want to play soccer anymore because of my injuries. My career was ended. I had a contract to go to Europe. Everything dropped. So I understood what trauma was.
Yeah.
You know, and then from there I went through 7 more surgeries and you completely go and just drop whatever you're dealing with. And you move into something different. And then a lot of my friends at the time helped me, you know. I mean, I wasn't built by myself. You have to have people to support you and believe in you.
Right.
And they will give me books. They will get me by. I mean, so a lot of people, good people, come to your life when you actually do something good too. Yeah. If you see someone at 5 o'clock in the morning every day, just give them something.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that was a huge push, really getting to know good people. Mm-hmm. I got 2 really good friends. They used to play for the Lithuanian national team, rugby national team. Mm-hmm. And these guys taught me how to lift.
Yeah.
And, you know, and, I mean, these guys are like massive dudes. I mean, 6'4", 280 pounds.
Is that how you got into bodybuilding?
That's how I got into, weightlifting. Weight training into bodybuilding was later down the road.
Yeah.
But then you start understanding about nutrition, and now you want to change your body, and I start fighting, competing in Muay Thai, and I was doing many other sports throughout my career. Mm-hmm. And it's just like I was lost. I didn't know what I really wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But I think all those years, 19 years from the beginning, what I did in soccer, is coaching, kind of taught me that my passion is soccer, and basically my passion is coaching, is teaching, is educating, to basically take sport to a completely different level than what actually soccer is.